For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kev Lewin's defense of Sandbox.
We're back. It's Free Agency Fits, episode 2. So guys, I gave you guys my Free Agency Fits 1 already. What I did was I gave you guys 5 guys that I think are some of the top names in all of free agency, and I gave you guys their best fit. Some of those guys would be returning to the same team and just re-signing. Some of these guys, are walking in free agency, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. So I'm here with part 2. We know NFL free agency is only 2 weeks away. It's going to be here faster than we know it. So I have to make sure that I'm giving you guys all the fits before I predict where a lot of these guys do end up. Okay, so starting off with the wide receiver position, like I said in the last episode, there are plenty of wide receivers that are going to be available in the free agency market. Before I get into the wide receivers, I got to tell you guys, go back and check out the rest of our content. We have our MTP series, Meet the People. Episode 3 is with Steph Lewis. Make sure to go and check that out. I gave you guys my positional rankings going down the top 10 for every position on the offense and defensive side of the ball, along with my top 25 guys. So my 25 best players in the NFL, offense, defense, whatever it is. Okay, we're here. We're jumping in with the free agency fits. My guy, my number 1 on this episode is going to be Mike Williams. Now look, Mike Williams had a great year, and so did the Chargers, right? But they fell short of expectations, and I would think that any team has the expectations of at least getting in the playoffs, winning a game and trying to make some noise when that happens. I do think that retaining Mike Williams is absolutely detrimental to the success that the Chargers are going to have. We saw the growth that Justin Herbert clearly had in this offense for a second year. Keenan Allen, we already know what he can do, and look at what Austin Eckler is being able to do the more comfortable that he gets. And that defensive side of the ball is definitely a side that had to deal with injuries more often than not, but I do think that those are things that can be overcome. Now look, Mike Williams, replacing him in the offense is not going to be easy if you do let him walk. I do think that there can be a bunch of suitors, right? You can just think of a team like Indy off the top. Mike Williams can go there. He could be their number 1. Chicago, he could walk in. He can go and be their number 1. It'll be interesting to see what happens with a team like Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams walk away, Jordan Love is going to be the starting quarterback. He's going to need somebody to throw to, so the wide receiver game is going to be very tricky in this NFL free agency. But my most likely scenario is Mike Williams signing back with the Chargers. I can't see how you would, want to affect or stunt the growth of your franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. And you saw the relationship that they had when Mike Williams was getting the ball early in the season. They were one of the best pairs, quarterback and wide receiver, in the league. And I just think that you have to build on that. There's no question about it. Water break. All right, my second guy on the list. We got to show some love to the tight ends, guys. The tight end position deserves a lot of love, a lot of respect. Now, I'm going to go to somebody that helped me win my fantasy championship. Dallas Cowboys have a great offense, but they're not really known for their tight end position. But this past year, they had a great tight end play. Dalton Schultz was an absolute baller, okay? So Dalton Schultz is a free agent this year. I don't think that this is a piece that Dallas should let walk. I do think that if Dallas is looking to let a piece on their offense go, that maybe they should consider moving on from Amari Cooper rather than Dalton Schultz. Look, you got a lot of production from him in the middle of the field. Dak clearly had a good relationship with him. You have the outside threat with Wilson. You have the outside threat with Lamb. And, Tony Pollard was a great back too, so Zeke is really shown to be an expendable piece as well. I do think that there are a couple of fits that Dalton Schultz could have that would be interesting to see, how that offense would really be impacted with his presence. And the Washington football team or the Washington Commanders, whatever you want to call them, is definitely one of them. And look, Terry McLaurin, I honestly think he's a top 10 talent at the wide receiver position. Now, with injuries and with quarterback play, his play isn't always, up to top 10 par, per se. But I do think, adding a weapon like that could definitely add some versatility and could probably help keep him healthy. But a slept-on option, a slept-on team that I really think could target the tight end position, whether that's through the draft or through free agency, the Tennessee Titans. Look at what they have done this past year without Derrick Henry, right? And Julio Jones was hurt. A.J. Brown was hurt. Getting somebody in the middle of the field that Ryan Tannehill can have a check down to, I really feel like that would add a different dimension to their offense. Sticking with the tight end position, Mike Gosicki, guys, this is another guy that's a free agent, and I also think it's very likely that he re-signs with Miami. A team that I just mentioned, the Tennessee Titans, they're a very tight end needy team. I definitely think that Gosicki or Dalton Schultz would add an interesting impact to their offense. But I do think Gosicki could have a spot for a different team in Florida, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, look, they definitely have to focus on building that offensive line up since, last year Trevor Lawrence didn't have the success that we thought. And that also, had to do with Urban Meyer and that whole scenario. It clearly didn't work out the way it wanted to. But you have a good running back in James Robinson. Travis Etienne is going to come back and he's going to be healthy. You don't have bad wide receivers, so why not get a reliant, a consistent check down tight end? And Gosicki or Dalton Schultz can provide that for you. So Jacksonville Jaguars, I definitely think that you guys should kick the tires on the tight end position. I know you guys got Dan Arnold last year, but you could always improve on that. Okay, going back to the defense. Here is somebody that I want to talk about. This is a big name, okay? Von Miller. Super Bowl champion, Von Miller. And we're talking about a former Defensive Player of the Year, a former Super Bowl MVP with the Broncos. Guys, Von Miller is a free agent once again. He was brought over from the Broncos to the Rams in the trade this year. And look, I think if the Rams are saying, oh, Aaron Donald, we're going to sign you back. Odell, we're going to sign you back. Sean McVay, you're coming back. I definitely think that the team itself would like to run it back. But we do know how that usually goes. I don't think Von Miller would ever play for another team if they weren't a contender. So two other teams that I think Von Miller could go to that I think I could seriously see him in and can really be a threat. Dallas. I mean, we saw what Dallas was like with Micah Parsons last year. And I just think that, I could definitely see Von Miller going to get the bag in Jerry's world. I really feel like, a top name like that is really, something that franchise targets often, especially at that position. And Kansas City, Kansas City was Super Bowl champions a couple years ago, and I'm sure that they're looking to get back while they're young, while they're healthy, while all the guys are under contract. And if you're looking to bring Von Miller in on a 1-year deal or 2-year deal because he is a little bit older in his career, I think it's possible. And I think the only way to convince Von Miller is making sure that your team is a contender. And with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce, what else could you really call a team other than a contender? Going to the next guy, another defensive guy, got a rep Boston here. Harold Landry from BC, Boston College. Got to give him a little shout out. But guys, Harold Landry had an incredible year at the defensive end outside linebacker position for the Tennessee Titans. And look, this is a homegrown guy. Tennessee drafted him in the second round a couple years back. And look, this is definitely someone that I think that they are going to try and retain, but it all depends on what the price tag is. The Tennessee Titans have a lot of big name guys, and you can't pay everybody, especially if a defensive guy, wants north of $20 million. But I wouldn't be surprised with the sack production that he had last year. I do think Harold Landry could have a couple other fits. One fit that I do think could be likely is the Denver Broncos, and we do know that they're missing the presence of Von Miller, but they do have Bradley Chubb over there. So that could be an instance that could shy them away, could shy him away from the Denver Broncos. But I always think pairing pass rushers together always leads to success. And another team that does have a successful pass rusher, but I think would make a great pair. The Carolina Panthers do have Brian Burns, but adding Harold Landry there, I really feel like could be a dynamic add to that team, to that defense, and we'll see, the effect that would have. But the last guy that I have on my list here, Allen Robinson, big name. Guys, this is a wide receiver a couple years ago that had over 120 catches, and we saw his numbers drastically go down over the past couple of seasons. Now look, he was trying to get paid. The Bears didn't pay him. That was an interesting scenario to see the way that all worked out, especially where the Bears are still in the need of an elite wide receiver. I do think Allen Robinson will be changing uniforms. He won't be back with the Bears. We did see him try and leave the Bears throughout last year. Him and his agent expressed that. But I do think that it's very interesting that the Kansas City Chiefs have been offering some contracts to a bunch of wide receivers. Juju was one last year. We do know that they were in the trade market for a bunch of wide receivers as well. I actually think that a fit that we wouldn't be expecting is Allen Robinson to Kansas City. So, If Allen Robinson does go to KC, you guys heard it here first, and that would put the Kansas City Chiefs right back where they need to be in the driver's seat for the Super Bowl next year. Now, I do think that there are a couple other teams that could offer Allen Robinson some services. The Indianapolis Colts, I talked about this in the last episode with Chris Godwin. I think that this could be a great fit going along with Michael Pittman. I just think that anything to support that offensive group, Jonathan Taylor there while they're young and while they're under contract, make sure that you're investing in doing it all, because how far are the Colts away, really? I know they missed the playoffs this year, but that wasn't supposed to be the case. Now, there's one last team I think would be interesting, and this was a team that saw improved wide receiver play from guys that they drafted throughout their process, and this is the Las Vegas Raiders. And we know Hunter Renfrow was a really good option last year. Zay Jones statistically had a decent season, but I do think that Allen Robinson going to a team like the Raiders would be great for Derek Carr, if he's going to be the quarterback there for quite some time. So that's a name to consider. Guys, these are my free agency fits, my top available free agents. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, share. Definitely interested to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys have some predictions on where a lot of these guys are going to land, please let me know in the comments. Reach out on social media. Guys, go and check out the rest of our content, our MTP series, Meet the People. Episode 3, like I said, is with Steph Lewis. Our positional rankings, I'm almost done going through every single position, giving you guys my top 10. And Steve's top 25 is about to be finished. Guys, go and check out my 25-1 NFL players who I ranked this year. Of course, with all of that, make sure we're finishing with a 5-star review. Go to Apple, Spotify, or Sandbox.net and make sure you're giving what we deserve. You guys know the deal. We'll be back with more rundown soon. Peace out from your favorite host. Peace and love always.
For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kev Lewis defense a Sandbox.